Lara Lyn, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So you're coming out with a book.
I have come out with a book. Skinny Southern is actually available right now.
And what was the impetus for this? And I apologize. Have you written other books?
Actually, I have. I did one cookbook several years ago before I converted to clean eating that was, more along the lines of classic Southern dishes, heavy butter, all the things that we associate with Southern cuisine. And then I actually wrote a children's book for my sons years ago based on the years of watching them play baseball. It was more or less something that I really just wanted to do to hold on to those memories. But writing is something I'm very passionate about. So,
okay. Well, tell me about your training and how you got into the world of cooking for us beer aficionados who maybe aren't as familiar with your career.
Well, I grew up cooking basically the same way every Southern girl does. I learned from my mother and my grandmother and just grew up with the Southern dishes, but through the years, my career has allowed me to work alongside people, from the culinary industry, from Food Network, from food and wine festivals coast to coast, from culinary instructors like Todd White here at the Culinary School, who's a good friend of mine. I've worked with Albany Tech on a lot of things. So I kind of say I've adopted culinary skills from real professionals, but my roots are just Southern and homegrown.
Awesome. So if I understand, you didn't go to school for it, but this has been a lifelong passion, and you've developed it as you've gone on.
Absolutely. And as far as the cooking goes, that was always something very big in my house, and where I found talent and comfort and fun with family and friends. And then the television part was a complete fluke. People say, "Well, how did you get started in television?" I didn't. I fell into that. Jim Wilcox tripped me right on into that with WALB.
So he said, "Come on, and we have a spot, and we'll see if you fill in." Or?
Well, no, I was actually working at WALB in the marketing department, doing commercials and things like that. And they came in and said, Jim came into one of our meetings and said, "We, been challenged to create a local program. Get busy, y'all think of something unique, and it can't be sports related." And I was like, "Okay, well, no problem there." So I go home and. For the weekend, I was thinking, and I told my husband, Chris, I was like, it's a shame we live right here in Southwest Georgia, and we have so many great things right here in our backyard. Great historical places and beautiful places to go and see. I said, and, we don't visit them. They're 30 minutes away. I said, what if we had a show that combined a little travel, a little garden and decorating, and a little food, wrap it up in a South Georgia format? And because Albany was called the Good Life City, I said, well, let's do something like that and call it Savor the Good Life. So I go in on Monday morning and I pitch it to Jim Wilcox and said, hey, this is my idea. And he went, I like it. And I was like, yay, I'm going to get to work on this show. I was all excited. And he said, and you can host it. And I said, no, I can't. I've never been on TV before in my life. And he said, well, if you suck, I will pull you. I was like, thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. So a month later, I was filming Savor the Good Life. And no one wanted to do the cooking segments. They were petrified of cooking on camera. So I got stuck and did it for 3 years, fell in love with it, and it rolled from there. GPB and Food Network and just going on and on. But I always tell people when they say, how did you do your television career? I didn't. I crash landed. It was just...
That trial period turned into a snowball.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it rolled down a hill. And then
Isn't that crazy how things like that happen?
Yeah.
That's pretty much how we got into the beer business. I looked at Dad, and we had a farm, and he said, well, what are we going to do up here? Because farming is very difficult. It is still much more difficult than the beer business. And Omaha Brewing had opened, and we looked at that and said, well, maybe we can take what we're doing and we can grow some of the product and try to sell the beer and use it as added value. And that snowballed into what we have today. The brewery's much bigger than the farm now, but they're both complementary, of course. So now you're famous.
No. No.
You're the most famous guest we've had. Let's put it that way.
That's absolutely true.
I'll take that, but I don't think famous is quite the word for it. Oh goodness.
Our viewers will probably increase from the 150
like 10 to
thousands.
Yeah. Party on, Garth.
Yeah. Party on, Wayne.
The Skinny Southern and the writing this new book, this was a transition for you, and we were talking about a little bit just then, and I had a similar experience. Mine didn't come from childbirth, but I changed what I was doing about a year ago, and it affected me personally, and it affected my career in that I've become interested in different things. I think it even rejuvenated my interest in medicine to a certain degree, because it is so impactful, and I think it's so understated. So, if you don't mind, will you tell us a little bit about how the Southern Cookbook became the Skinny Southern Cookbook?
Well, I will say when the publisher told me that they had come up with the idea of Skinny Southern, my first thought was backlash, but the point was not to be skinny, saying that you have to be skinny to be healthy, but it was the oxymoron of people automatically think of Southern cuisine as butter, deep fried, that there's no way in the world that Southern cuisine. No, it's funny because when I did convert and decide to do this for my health, and I didn't even know that I had a gluten issue, that I was gluten sensitive, much less that our 5-year-old was. But when I made this choice and I started seeing the results, I was like, okay, I'm at a point now where if I'm going to live the rest of my life this way, I can't be living my life at home this way, but be on television representing something that wasn't true to who I was, and writing cookbooks that were not going to be in line with how I lived my life. And then at the same time, I thought, okay, but if I do this, I also can't be bored with cooking. And people automatically think, when you go to the word healthy, which is the last thing I want people to think of, I want them to think the food's just good. Forget about the fact that it's healthy. But when they go to that mindset, grilled chicken salad is just floating. It's like, the visions of sugar plums. When you say healthy, people have visions of chicken salad, grilled chicken salad floating through their heads. And with me being not classic, but a chef and loving to cook and having that passion, I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to dive in 100% and push those skills. And just like you were saying, it renewed a passion and spark in you. That's what I found for me, was it didn't take away from my love of cooking, and it just gave me a whole new direction at 47 years old. Oh, I was 46, almost 47, to go in. And it was like, wow, it's like being given a whole new box of groceries to choose from and work with. And I think that's where, for me, I committed originally just to do one new recipe a day for the first 90 days. Well, that's turned into over 400 new recipes. The cookbook's out, and I'm already working on the second cookbook. Okay. I've already committed to the second one. And it just I never get tired of it. Never.
And so for me, I had arthritis, and I had turned 44, I think. And of course, being a physician, I was doing the exact opposite of what you should do, because physicians, they work all day. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You're tired at the end of the day. You blame everything on the stress.
Pharmaceutical reps for bringing all that food.
That's exactly right. All the donuts, and really eating poorly all day long, not getting any sleep, being constantly stressed out. So all of the things that are bad for your health, most physicians are already doing. And then suddenly, bam, you actually have a real issue. And so then you have then you do what you're supposed to do, is you actually go see a physician, and he tells you, okay, you have this problem. Well, you don't want to take kudos to the pharmaceutical industry, because they've done great things over the past few years, but over the past century. But I don't want to take a poison when there's something easier that I felt like I could do to make it better. And there was science behind it, and it's not crazy. So it's not like we're talking about divination over rocks, or going out and trying to find water with a stick. This is just a basic, simple philosophy that says eat healthy first. And I've been and the irony of that was, for 10 years, I've been in practice 10 years now, private practice for 10 years, I was telling people to eat healthy, and then we were sending them on their way. Eat healthy. See you later. Well, we didn't really, and the fact of the matter is I don't think the majority of physicians are trained very well in what eat healthy means, and even if they are, it's hard to apply it into private practice. And so they're just some very specific things, and most of those have to do with inflammatory foods. And so I've done three things in our practice. We developed a handout, and it's gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, or low sugar. And then if it doesn't walk on the ground or grow in the ground, you shouldn't be eating it. And then we don't calorie restrict. And so I think one of the biggest no-nos, especially for a population that's already sugar addicted, is tell them to calorie restrict, because they'll do it all day long. And then come 7 o'clock in the evening, they eat everything they can. Mm-hmm. So fasting's actually very good for you. But if you fast and then you eat a high fat, high sugar meal at the end of the day, that's probably the worst thing you could possibly do. And so just by incorporating that into the practice, and not everybody does it. I think I get 2 reactions. I get, yes, I don't get another pill. Or, yes, I can avoid surgery. And the other reaction is, oh my God, you're going to take sugar away. Mm-hmm. And that's absolutely crazy to me that it's as addicting as cigarettes.
Yeah. I think, with what I've done, because I gave up, of course, gluten and refined sugars, I'll use, coconut sugar, honey, maple syrup, and a new favorite of mine that I have discovered is date syrup, which actually has less calories than honey. I get it out of California, an organic date syrup.
We're getting tips.
Yes, and that's what I use because it doesn't cause the blood sugar spike. And one of the things that I found out when I converted and gave up gluten was the people sending me messages. Oh, but have you seen these gluten-free this and gluten-free that and gluten-free? And it's like, okay, you're still putting. I will grant you. Okay, there's some gluten-free little pita chips right here for our olive dip that I brought, but as a whole, I avoid the processed foods as much as I possibly can and opt for real food. And that's one of the things I found, with the people who were going gluten-free is they were still opting for, say, gluten-free, but they were using the gluten-free all-purpose flours. Okay, you cut out the gluten, but you still got the carb spike. You still have no added nutritional value. You still got the high calories. I don't do that. I use almond flour, coconut flour, the others that don't cause that. And you get some nutritional value and healthy calories, some good things out of it. And I work with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta up at CHOA, and I did some things with their test kitchen with the Diabetes Center. And that's one of the things they're very big on is not using these all-purpose and gluten-free packaged things because they do still cause that spike. And there's a direct link between, like as most autoimmune diseases, diabetes and gluten sensitivity. I think it was 1 in 10 diabetics is also celiac. I don't know if that number is exactly correct because that was just something I heard them saying up there when I was working with them, and it was something I didn't know, and it really caught my attention. I was like, wow. And you look at, okay, gluten-free everything, but does it have any nutritional value? Mm-hmm. Are you really doing your body any good? You cut the gluten, but you still left everything else.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that we talk about in the office every day is you're getting tons of calories, but you're not getting much nutrition. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that's been left out of the discussion of nutrition just all across the board is not all calories are created the same. Green leafy vegetables have to be a part of every meal. And in fact, the fight against cholesterol has gotten to the point that people aren't eating meat as much as they used to. So their protein and they're actually not getting enough cholesterol, I don't think, and that's part of the hormone imbalance that we're seeing. Part of that is toxicity due to like BPGs and plastics and in hormonal inhibitors that are in our diet. But part of it is due to everybody's so scared that they're going to eat cholesterol that they're not eating as much meat, and so they're nutritionally deficient in that arena also. And it's so complicated. I mean, even being a physician and understanding most of the biochemistry, I get confused because you'll have one expert say one thing and another expert say another thing. So it's nice to have, it's nice to sort of simplify it, and go through it that way. So tell us what you brought.
Well, I brought some, since we're we're pubbing it, I guess you should say. We're going along with the beer
Some
theme.
of us are drinking beer, which actually does have gluten.
There's plenty of gluten.
I'm not drinking the gluten. But
She has a shrub.
I have a shrub, a non-gluten, which is very lovely, actually. But I went with 3 little just fun, what you would think of as a bar pub food. Now, this one of them does have dairy. These are little frikas, and that's just a simple little Parmesan crisp cracker with some dried rosemary. Super easy to do. It's one that's in the cookbook. But something like this, the Parmesan cheese has that salty bite.
Can we try that?
Yeah, help yourself. We want to hear crunching through the microphone. But this works really well.
You can actually hear the goodness.
But it works really well with like an IPA because it's got that salty bite, but it's not a heavy cheese. Like, a lot of times people will think beer and cheese and,
Pass it down.
Yeah, it's let's see if we can pass and not knock the microphones over. But, it's a good one to go with an IPA.
Party on, Garth.
Because it doesn't overpower the beer and make it go flat on the palate. Just because hard cheeses also tend to be less calories, less fat. And so it's simple. Parmesan cheese, rosemary, parchment paper, and it makes its own
the
little
rosemary
crisp.
is so nice. Yeah. That's one of my favorite herbs.
And then
Yours tastes way better than my wife's. I hope to God she's not liking it.
edit that out.
It's okay. She does it. Although, ironically, she might watch this one.
No, I mean, she may. We've been doing a low carb, modified trip diet for a while, and with some success. I'm still not sold on cauliflower as a substitute for things that I enjoy.
Oh, I can correct that.
Can you?
I can fix you.
All right,
Don't
good.
worry, I can fix you.
I don't know. It just doesn't taste like rice to me. It tastes like.
The olive dip is so good.
Is it?
It's one of my favorite. Yeah, olives are favorite anyway.
I did this one for my husband, Chris. He loves olives, and you get the little kick of the cayenne in there. And so I did this one for him because he absolutely loves it. But it's a double whammy because it's an olive and pecan dip. And so it has olives, pecan oil, pecans themselves, and cayenne and garlic. It's 5 simple ingredients.
Actually,
This
you
is
can't
another
have this.
This one's in the book too.
I was waiting for it to come over here.
Well, what I like about this one is if you're going to have pub food, for lack of better terms, you're getting a heart-healthy dose. You've got olives and pecans and pecan oil, which are the number 1 most nutrient-rich tree nut. I mean, pecans, thank you, Georgia. We are the number 1 producer. They have bypassed walnuts and all the others that people thought, which are still healthy. I'm not knocking the others, but pecans are the number 1 most nutrient rich. And so you get a double whammy there.
It's like a Mediterranean diet meets Southwest Georgia.
There you go.
You can use that in your next book.
I was going to say, can I borrow that from you? And
you said something to begin with. You said you learned cooking from your mom and your grandmother, I think. Don't want to quote you out of whatever. And so, but that's one of the things that I tell our patients is eat like your grandmother taught you to. Eat your green vegetables. Your plate should be about 3/4 green and about 1/4 meat. And so it's interesting that's the way South used to eat. Mm-hmm. And you don't remember, and even if you look at pictures, I mean, you didn't have a lot of, they ate a local grown, locally produced diet, and they had plenty of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was the Southern, we were, agriculture, so we had plenty of food, but they're not obese. Mm-hmm. I mean, the obesity epidemic started, probably late 50s, early 60s, and has proceeded to now. So, I mean, I thought it was interesting because that's something that we tell patients every day. Right. Eat like your grandma taught you to.
Exactly. But our mind tends to go towards the fat ends of things when you think of things. But when you think about what, originally was whatever was in the field, that was what was on the table. And you didn't have all the preservatives. You didn't have the fast food. You didn't have all of that. Mm-hmm. And so you could still have a slice of pound cake or a little pat of butter and things like that because it was such a small amount,
It wasn't every meal.
Exactly.
And, food availability is another thing today. We're blessed that we don't have starvation in the United States. We're cursed because food is so available. I mean, that's part of the physiologic problem that we have is the overabundance of calories. And the cheaper the calorie, the worse it is for you.
Yep.
Right.
We were talking about that before.
Yeah.
It's so easy to and it's cheap basically to go get fast food and incorporated into. I wasn't going to use any names.
Yeah.
But
I think it's okay. McDonald's knows their Happy Meal's cheap.
Yeah, it is. It's laden with a lot of calories too.
Yeah.
Well, 2017 was the first year on record that Americans spent more money eating out than they did on groceries.
Yeah, that's amazing to me.
Yeah, a friend of mine that is in the food industry was telling me about that because he had read the report, and he called me. He said, Lara Lyn, you're not going to believe this. And because I was working on the cookbook and everything, and he said, this is where we are. And that's one of the things that I wanted to do with that book, because people are busy. You know, you have kids and you're going in 5,000 different directions. You've got soccer, football, cheerleading, gymnastics, whatever it is. By the time you get home, you either a lot of times pull through somewhere, or by the time you get home, you're too tired to go through the process of, it's one thing to have to cook, but then if you're having to think, okay, I've got to cook and it's got to be healthy. And that's what I wanted that book to be, was easy for people to pick up and go, oh, I can make this. This is easy. It's not 5,000 ingredients. You know, there are some things in there that are a little more complicated and in depth, but nothing that someone's going to have to go to culinary school. And so many people nowadays don't know how to cook. They didn't grow up. I was fortunate that my mother put me in the kitchen and I learned, but my roommate in college couldn't boil water. And I love her. She's a great cook now. Sorry, Amy, love you. But it's the truth. I mean, we moved in together in college, and I was like, okay, she literally cannot boil water. Yeah. And I've taught my sons to cook. Bo and Christopher both know how to cook. Dylan is learning how to cook because you
they're
can't.
They're going to get good wives. So.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But you can't rely. It can't be anymore where it's the wife's responsibility. It can't be. It's because either A, she may not know, or she's working just as hard as the husband is. So it's got to be as easy as it can be.
So I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So it really became, for me, the other part of the lifestyle change was exactly what you said, cooking my food. I don't have enough time to do it every day, or at least I don't take the time to do it every day. So it started out, and it actually has continued, that on Sunday or Saturday, I'll cook enough for, and I know everybody can't do this, but I'll cook enough for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then I guess I fast on Fridays. Or generally I'm here doing a podcast, so Friday must be my cheat day. So
we tried to book a guest that brings food.
Well, you still have one more you haven't tried.
Preferably gluten-free.
Yeah. And you still have one more here you haven't tried. These are my little Mexican pinwheels.
Oh, nice.
Now this is a gluten-free tortilla wrap, and this is dairy-free as well. You can take two. I make all of my own seasonings, salad dressings, and everything. I don't buy anything.
You knew it was coming this way.
I don't buy anything pre-made, because the sodium content. If you look at a pack of taco seasoning mix, it will scare you to death.
Oh wow, that's so good.
But that is my homemade buffalo seasoning mix there, and Kite Hill cream cheese, which is plant-based cream cheese. It's almond-based, and the Kite Hill yogurt. Some diced chilies and diced tomatoes, fresh cilantro, fresh scallions. There's no dairy, there's no meat, but you've got the great flavor from the buffalo seasoning, and it's just fun little food, and it's easy. You can make those up and take them for a light lunch. You could add some shredded chicken or something to it if you really wanted to make it heavier.
So what's your wrap? What's in your wrap? Because that's really good, and it tastes like it has a lot of gluten in it. Yeah. So it's just
it doesn't.
So let me.
Now, did you make the wraps?
No, actually, I did purchase those. Those are by Mission, and that's the best gluten-free wrap I have found. And they've just started carrying them. I just found them.
Yeah, because that tastes just like a normal. Yeah, I'm very jealous. Oh.
I haven't gone gluten-free, but I purchased their low-carb wraps, and they're pretty darn good as far as the low-carb thing goes. I too have. It all started one day. I have an armoire that has mirrors on it, and I happened to be bending over getting something out of the bottom drawer, and I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. And I was like, "Who's that fat guy?"
Actually, I think you said it blinded you.
It did. It was horrible. I was like, God, no wonder my wife is just occasionally disgusted looking at me.
Well,
it's not as easy to get the weight off.
that
when you
wasn't
get
the
older.
reason. It was because we went out drinking the night before.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's the truth be told.
Yeah, the gluten.
Yeah.
It was the
It's
gluten.
the damn gluten.
You know, and there are more and more options for people, and even restaurants that aren't 100% gluten-free are giving options. You're seeing it more and more. After I did the appearance on The Kitchen, I was on there for all of a hot, 8 minutes, whatever my little segment was. Mm-hmm. And within 30 minutes, I had 600 new Instagram followers. And the comments over and over again, oh my gosh, I wish you had your own show. Thank you for making a recipe. I'm celiac. My child is celiac. I converted to gluten-free because I have Hashimoto, because I have this, I have that. I was so glad to be able to take a recipe from the television and go make it right away because it's a lifestyle. All of us that are gluten-free, whether it's by choice or because we have no choice, we still have a life. It is a lifestyle. We have holidays. We have tailgating. We have birthday parties. We have family dinners. We need a lifestyle programming too, and we need content. We need restaurants that we can go out to that give us those options so that we can enjoy life fully.
Yeah. So from the medical part of it, which is obviously very interesting to me, the celiac disease, which is celiac sprue, which is what she's describing, was what I was taught in medical school as a reaction to grains, and specifically gluten. And I think what what has been shown as things have moved forward over the last few years is that it's much more common, in a less severe form in a large number of people. And so we're probably, the irony, or I think irony is the correct word of this, is that in the next few years, I think we'll hear a ton more about it. And I'll tell you why. And it's sort of sad, is because they've isolated a very specific protein called zonulin. And zonulin causes the gap junctions in between your intestinal cells to widen. And it seems like that one of the things that gluten does is it causes production of this specific chemical. And so now, with our medical model, which is sometimes helpful and sometimes not helpful, there are several drugs in development to block this chemical. And I'm sure as soon as one of those hits the market, that we'll be talking about this a whole lot more than we are now. And that's the general sensitivity of foods to cause this thing, which is loosely called colloquially as leaky gut, which is inflammation in your intestines, which leads to a wide number of different problems. And so it's going to be very interesting to see, but specifically just wanted to point out that I think a lot of people have, and me even. And so I am drinking a beer. Beer does have gluten in it. There are some gluten-free beers which are available, so we do not have one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to twist your arm on that one because I really want you to make one.
Well, it's very difficult. Gluten itself is the wrapper of the wheat or the grain, and so the hull itself is it's the structural part of the grain, and the structural part of the grain is actually used in the brewing process as a filter. And so it's a little bit complicated, but in the very first part of beer production, the hulls, we recirculate the beer, and the grains become a filter, and then the wort at that point is moved to a different vessel. So with gluten-free grains, that would not be possible, which means we would need a different vessel to be able to do that part, and that's expensive. Now, people have invested in that, and that's where gluten-free beers come from. And also there's a couple of chemicals that dissolve the gluten, and just coming pops in my head that I don't know that I want chemicals to dissolve gluten, and I don't know about the chemical residue that's going to be left in the beer. And then is that a different problem than the gluten that was there to begin with? And so when we come up with a scientific way, we try to fix a problem by adding a different chemical to do the problem that we had to begin with. Sometimes we create a different problem. And so anyway. So you are a sponsor for Polo in the Pines, and Sean O'Keefe, I've really enjoyed meeting him and going up and being on his show. So tell me how that developed.
Well, Tina Butler Fowler, who was the person who started Polo in the Pines in honor of her mother, Sharon McCollum Knight, she and I had known each other since high school, and she was here about 2.5 years ago getting ready for the new event, and she asked me if I would, help and do some things along with it. So we had known each other forever, and the more involved I got, the more it touched my heart. And right about the time that I got involved with it, Lily and Seville Sullivan, the sisters that were diagnosed basically like a month apart with brain cancer, were named as the honorees. And I went to school with Tommy and Colleen, and those girls went to school with our boys. And when you see something like that and you're a parent and it hits home, but it hits home even more when it's somebody you know. I mean, I'd watched those girls grow up, and I was like, how much more can I do to, what can I do? And Tina said, with what you're doing, and especially once I converted to the clean eating and everything, she said, it's a perfect opportunity for you to be a brand ambassador, be a voice, be a spokesperson, do events and things like that. And so that's really how that came about, was just from our mutual relationship, and then being involved with it. It gave me the chance to go to CHOA and see and learn about the research that they are doing there, meet with these doctors. Little Caroline, that was the honoree this past year, getting to see her, she's just absolutely precious. And we're doing an event in March at the Wolf Sub-Zero showroom, and a dinner and book signing and all, and the proceeds are all going to Polo in the Pines. But I think everybody wants to find one thing that they can put their thumb on and say, this is something I'm really proud that I'm involved with. And for me, it's given me more than I've given it, because it's one of those things, until you go and you see it, you can't really describe what those children go through. And going to that hospital, hearing Lily and Seville's story, Caroline's story, and watching all this, I thought to myself, if God had one plan for me to do something somewhere else, I really felt like it was it. I had not seen Tina in years. And when she came, it was a connection, friendship that rekindled just immediately. And I just felt like it was, one step after the other, and really what I wanted to do. And if I was going to be able to use my celebrity, and I'm using, and I am doing finger quotes because I do, but if I could use whatever it is that I have to help that, then that was where I wanted to be. And Chris and I talked about it at great length, and I said, I really feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. That out of all of the things that I can help or do, this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I really enjoyed meeting Sean. He was, Dad and I went up, and when we first opened in Atlanta, well, I guess we hadn't even opened in Atlanta as far as distributing up there. But what he's doing with Polo in the Pines and some of the other events, I guess his story is really cool. He was a chef, I think, out in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And then he really dedicated his life to service and to these various causes. He's very good at putting sponsors together with events, and he's facilitated money flow through to the causes that he thinks are worthwhile. And I agree with him that this is one that is that's worthwhile. And I don't. We're a small brewery, so as far as what we can contribute, but he's doing a very very cool thing overall. So that's been neat to be a part of, mm-hmm. And his show was a lot more formal than ours.
Sean has amazing talent. I mean, when you see something, an event that he has put together, you're just like, wow. He over the top doesn't even describe what he does. He's really just that amazing.
So your book, what's your favorite recipe? Or do you have a
what
favorite?
What page is it on?
Well, actually, I have two in there that are favorites. My crab cakes with remoulade sauce, because I love crab. Crab is like my favorite thing. And so the crab cakes. And then I mean, I'm a Southern girl, but I have more of a savory palate than a sweet palate. So the fried green tomatoes. I grew up, you know, my dad had a garden growing up, and Mama did the fried green tomatoes. And finding a way to be able to still have fried green tomatoes and them not be bad for me, I was just like, yes. And so, you know, I'm always, when the tomatoes are coming to season, it's like.
So what do you bread them in?
Almond flour.
Almond flour.
Almond flour.
So if
I can keep Bob's Red Mill in business because I go through enough almond flour to sink a battleship.
So can you come? Do you have a fried catfish recipe for?
Not a fried. I have a pecan crusted catfish in there.
Pecan crusted. All right. So
Use pecan meal.
yeah, awesome. Very good.
Crab cakes are on page 93.
Just for anybody who's wanting to know.
So this book is out now.
Yes.
Excellent.
It's at Place on the Point right now, and it's available on Amazon, Books A Million, and Barnes & Noble as well.
Wonderful. Like, so gluten. When Tripp told me we were doing a thing, I was like, I'm finally going to learn what gluten, Glauben, Globen means from Def Leppard.
I was like, what is that?
Rock of Ages.
I was like, wait.
Yeah.
They were singing about gluten the whole time, and we didn't know it. There we go. Who knew? Def Leppard knew it before us.
That suddenly came out. That's awesome.
So, but
very good
this
reference.
Well,
love that.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I'm ready to buy a book.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to actually just steal this one in front of me.
I will say that the hardest part about this has been actually cooking. I mean, I've had to, all right, Sunday afternoon, it's time to cook. I mean, it's become a little religious ceremony that on Sundays we do it.
We cook in advance too. Actually, we trying to, my daughter likes to eat healthy, and so we cook a bunch on the weekend, and then my wife turns it all into these little things in the refrigerator, which of course I don't eat, but they do.
Well, I think meal prep is one of the most important things you can do. I mean, not only aside from just eating clean and gluten-free and things like that, but to keep your sanity. Because when the work week and school week starts on Monday, like for me, and I'm packing Bo and Dylan's lunch every day. Chris comes home every single day for lunch. I mean, he comes home to eat. He doesn't go somewhere. So, meal prepping for me, going on and doing things like that can be the perfect side dishes for lunches when he comes home, where all I have to do is, put some grilled chicken or salmon or something along with it, but doing like the quinoa salads and things like that I can make up ahead of time. They're in the refrigerator, pop them out. You're done. Go on and bag, the fruit for the kids' lunches. Wash the grapes, get them in the Ziploc, whatever it happens to be, so that you're just grabbing it and throwing it in. The morning goes so much faster and so much more smoothly that you don't feel like you've started your day with, as my grandmother used to say, with your teeth itching, because you were just like, just trying to get everybody out the door, much less to do it healthy. You've got to meal prep.
Yeah. Dinner time's tough too. You got 2 kids doing extracurricular activities, and you're trying to, it is hard to resist the urge of, oh, you know what, we might just do pizza night.
Yes.
But, I'll tell you, my wife is on it. She's making a lot of stuff out of cauliflower these days.
What's the secret to the cauliflower?
You got to tell me what that is.
Well, I think the secret to the cauliflower is, number one, fresh cauliflower, first of all.
Yeah.
I mean, the frozen takes on, in most cases, a little bit of a different flavor. To me, fresh is the best. And I mean, my 22-year-old was a white potato junkie. And when I told him when he first came home, and I was like, I made mashed cauliflower. We don't have mashed potatoes around here anymore. I mean, he looked at me like I had 3 heads,
But you made them taste good.
I did. But I think you have to, cauliflower is a blank slate. You have to start with fresh, and then you have to bring in the flavor. I do a cauliflower soup. I do mashed cauliflower. I do a Spanish cauliflower rice. That it's all about the flavors you bring into it, and then the freshness. The texture is different. When you buy the frozen, the texture is just mushy.
So, what are you doing with fettuccine, and how are you making pasta that's gluten-free?
I do not use any of the gluten-free pastas. I use things like spaghetti squash, zucchini noodles, things like that.
I got you.
And that's what I do. And I don't miss it, to be honest with you. I really have not missed it. I do baked spaghetti, but of course the base is spaghetti squash. And I think once you taste it, and this has been true with my cooking classes. Todd Stone, who did all the photography for the cookbook, I converted him. I mean, he's not gluten-free, but I made a believer out of him, and he was very scared. He was like, okay, this gluten-free cookbook is going to be a real thrill to photograph. But I made a believer out of him. And then, like Bo's friends. I mean, when they come over, or I'm making something for the football team, and they don't know it's gluten-free chocolate chip cookies, they just eat them all. They just eat them all. And I think, that's the thing about this is, finding those things. Once you taste them and you realize, okay, I don't miss that, and this is really good, yeah, you move on.
Well, that was one of the biggest pushbacks that I got was, as you're saying, if you're going to do it, everybody's pretty much got to be involved because that's what's getting cooked. And of course, me with my personality, I immediately went in the cupboard in all houses and threw all the sugary cereals and all the cookies and everything away, and all the kids looked at me and went, "Dad, no." So, have you been as strict with it about your kids, or not so much?
Yes. Try getting goldfish away from Dylan. Was, I guess, 3.5 at the time. You try taking goldfish away from a 3.5-year-old. That is a fight on your hands you do not want, and it was ugly. But no, at home now, Bo and Christopher are older, so there's this thing called dating and Chick-fil-A, and they're going to go. And I'll let them make that decision. But at home, yes, they eat gluten-free. We eat clean at home. I don't have refined sugar in the house. I don't have all-purpose flour. I don't have all the processed stuff. Dylan, you have to have things for lunch boxes. So Snyder's of Hanover, I love their gluten-free pretzels. That's what Dylan has. But we got rid of the goldfish. We got rid of all those things, and they're fine. They're happy. Dylan loves to bake. He'll be like, Mama, let's make some blueberry muffins. And he'll come in the kitchen with me and crack the eggs and help me mix. And they're not missing anything. And I think that's the point, is if you give them something else and it tastes good, they're okay. They'll go on.
Right, as long as they're not hungry and starving. Yeah. I think that was the thing my kids were worried about. There just wouldn't be any food. It's all gone, Dad. It's like, and honestly, I don't know, weren't very good parents because we allowed a couple of them just to grow up on chicken fingers and French fries. So they thought that was the only thing that was available.
Well, and I think so many things that we thought, and I was extremely guilty of this, that we think of that are presented to us in the grocery stores are presented to us to make us think that they are healthy. Like, there is a breakfast bar that I will not name. It implies it's nutritious. There is nothing nutritious about it. And, it was just on a list of the 50 worst foods you could ever give your child. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I wonder how many Bo Carter ate of those over the years. When I, mistakenly thought they were good for him. Here, honey, have your breakfast. Go out the door. But
I have a couple of them. You won an Emmy.
I did.
You're the only person I know that won an Emmy.
Where do you keep it?
Is it in your purse?
No, it's not.
Did they give you a little one to take?
I would put that on the hood of my car.
It's a little large to fit in your purse. When I came home with that, Dylan called it C-3PO because he thought that it looked like C-3, the gold stuff. He thought it looked like C-3PO from Star Wars. I
like him.
And he said, and he's got a big gold ball because it reaches up and has the ball. Yeah, I filmed a show with Georgia Public Broadcasting, and it was part of their summer lineup series. I actually produced it, hosted it, created all the content, and worked with an amazing team from GPB. And we were nominated for 5 Emmys, and including lighting, directing, photography, one other one which I've forgotten, sorry, and then television host. And I won for on-air talent as television host for it.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun night, and it was so funny because Shelly Gay kept telling me, have you decided what because Shelly's my trainer, and she said, have you decided what you're going to say? I said, don't tell me that. I'm not. You're going to. I'm not planning a speech. I'm not. My chances of winning. I was up against a lot of people, and I'm sitting there going.
Are you saying you winged the whole speech?
I did.
Sweet.
Wow.
I got up there. It was because I was like, no. I'm not going to think. I'm not going to do that because then I'm going to jinx myself. I won't win, and and so I was like, no. And then, so I'm walking up. When they called my name, I remember the only 2 thoughts were, oh, gosh, I'll listen to Shelly, and oh, my gosh, I hope I don't trip over this dress going up those stairs. That was 2 things. And I got up there, and it was like, blank. And then, but anyway, I said it. And when I got off stage, and, they get you back behind there before you go back out in the audience and everything, I was like, Does anybody know what I just said? Because I was so overwhelmed and I was so shocked because I really was not expecting it. I mean, how many people from Albany, Georgia that, filmed with a local TV station, did a little series with GPB, think you're going to walk up there and
None
walk away with that? Yeah, and you just don't, you really don't think it's going to happen to you.
That's why you got to put it on the hood of the car.
and I mean, I had to literally, when I got back to the table, of course, Chris was sitting there, the director, my team, everybody that had filmed with me, and they all had tears streaming. They were all excited. And I said, "Oh, one of y'all please tell me what I said, because I don't remember anything I said up there." I mean, not one clue. I had to watch it back, and I was like, "Did I even thank anybody, or what did I do?" That was a fun night. But no, to answer your question, it is in my den on the bookcase.
Is it? Yeah.
Yes.
I guess that's a good place.
It's kind of like a case around it because you have boys, so they're like playing with it.
No, it's on a high shelf.
It's on a high shelf.
It's on a high shelf.
We're not getting close to it. That's awesome.
And Trip, I gotta pass these back down to you because these are so good. I've eaten an entire plate. And they're
gluten-free. They're actually good for me.
They're spicy.
They're gluten-free. They're dairy-free.
And they're spicy.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
That's that homemade buffalo seasoning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's one of the things
That's
that
so good.
my husband and my oldest, they like their spices. They like their hot sauces and stuff. So that was one of the first things I had to do was come up with a buffalo seasoning for them.
Yeah, those are spot on. What page are those on?
They actually, are not in there. I came up with this after I finished that. I wish I had had time to get them in there, but
typed it up.
Well,
website.
so that's gonna. Yeah, okay.
You can go to the
fair
website.
enough. We'll get the recipe before you leave, because those are really good. There's no cauliflower, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I left the cauliflower out of those for you.
Those are tasty.
So, healthy cooking and Southern doesn't really go together, does it?
No, that's why we named the book Skinny Southern. It's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
In most people's mind.
Yeah, and I think, and interestingly enough, it makes plenty of sense to me for what I'm doing to sort of understand it, because there's no end to the pushback that I get for talking about diets, and I wish we could sort of change the vernacular of what we're discussing. And so it's not a, and I think they have to in the region or in the business of food. They've changed how they talk about it. It's not really a diet; it's a lifestyle change, and you're doing these things. But when you're talking to people who aren't involved in it every day, and you're telling them what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do, another diet. Mm-hmm. But the concept of being able to eat, or really trying to require people to eat more, because I think a big thing is people don't eat enough, so they don't know what to do, and so they actually just don't do anything, and then they're starving themselves, which fasting is not necessarily bad. So that's what I was, but if you're going to fast and then suddenly you're going to eat a high-fat, high-sugar meal, that's not good at all. And so your cookbook, Skinny Southern, is saying that you can eat Southern, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're that the food is either bad for you or going to make you get fat, right?
Correct, but also everything in moderation. I mean, because there are desserts in there. There's a recipe in there for Dylan's chocolate chip cookies that he loves to make. Those are I named them after him. Dylan's favorite chocolate chip cookies. You can look up the page. Don't remember the page, but it's in it. And but I mean, it's moderation. Yes, it's gluten-free, refined sugar-free, but you can't eat 3 dozen of them. You've got to be sensible. There's a certain amount of, use your brain that people have to be responsible for. And what you're saying about the diet, that's true. I wish people would get away from the mentality, because a diet implies an end date. And so if that end date comes and then you go back to what you were doing before, you're creating a vicious cycle. It's not a diet. It is a lifestyle. And if you live this way and you watch what you do and you do things in moderation, then it can be a healthy, happy lifestyle. You can maintain a healthy weight, but you've got to take, some responsibility. Just because there's a chocolate chip cookie, recipe in the cookbook doesn't mean make them eat the whole batch and then call me and go, "I'm not skinny."
Or that's the only thing you're eating. Yeah. So like you said, everything in moderation.
Page 144. It's Dylan with a Y.
Surely. Also not gluten-free, sorry.
Well, I'm enjoying mine, though.
And it's funny, and once again, we tell patients that if you're not sick and you don't have celiac disease, then it's not that you can't ever have gluten again. The diet that I give people is came up with by Dr. Terry Walls, and she is at the University of Illinois. And like a lot of physicians, she came down with MS. And what she did, she had gone through all of the usual treatments for MS, and she was in a wheelchair and she couldn't walk anymore. And so, like a lot of us, she started doing research. She was reading more research papers than what she was actually practicing, sounds like. And she came up with, and it's not just about the diet, which is another thing that we touched on a little bit. It's diet along with cutting. There's so many different chemicals that we're exposed to during everyday life that it's hard to even understand. And so a lot of what she's done is not only the diet, which is one of the things that we've adopted in my practice, but it's the diet plus trying to detox your life as much as you can. So everything from hairspray, to soaps, to plastic bottles and bags, to
Roundup.
Yeah. I mean, there's a study by the CDC that shows that children that are born today have over 100, almost 200 chemicals in their bloodstream at the time of birth that aren't supposed to be there. Not to mention which ones are toxins, which ones actually have been shown to be carcinogenic. And so that's just crazy. So in a complex society such as ours has gotten to the point where if you get to the point in life, usually around 30, I woke up at 35. This is another. So when you wake up with a sleep injury that you're starting to get older. Do you know what a sleep injury is?
I guess we're saying you did something in your sleep.
You just wake up and you wake up and something. Yeah, I woke up and my arm wouldn't move.
That's called Saturday night palsy.
Yeah.
That's a real nerve injury, sir. And there's a reason you got it.
It's like squirrel. I totally lost my train of thought. So are your cooking classes? Are you still doing those now that you're famous?
I love it when you say that. Yes, I am still doing the cooking classes, and those have been a big hit. And I didn't intend to do those. Those came about at a football game after I had lost weight and was, people knew I was working on the book and everything. And I was coming around the track at one of the football games, and 3 girlfriends of mine stopped me and they said, we want to start eating the way you're doing, but here again, grilled chicken salad, we burn out. We need recipes. Why don't you start doing some cooking classes? And I have doctors that come to the cooking classes. I mean, I have one doctor and his wife that come consistently. They don't miss. I've got people that have been, to 3, 4, 5, and then I've had people that are the minute I post it, they're Venmoing me going, here. Put me down, sign me up. And a lot of times it'll be people that are just curious, okay, I want to see what this is all about. Does the food taste good? And then if so, I'm good enough cooking on my own that I can go and, do some things, but they want to really see, is this going to taste okay? Am I going to be like, ooh, I ate healthy? Or is it going to be like, ooh, that was good? And that's what I tell people. If somebody eats something that I've cooked and they go, well, I ate healthy, then I failed, crashed, zero margin, on that. But if they eat it and they're like, man, that was good, then that's a success, So.
I think you said it, but how do you sign up for a class?
It's just through Facebook. I mean, it's because I've just done it locally.
Just instant messenger.
just direct message me on Facebook. Because, I've just kept it local. I do it at Poole Brothers, and, there's some months, like probably in March, I'm only going to be able to do one because things are ramping up with book signings, and I'm going to be going back out to LA. I'm going to be going to Charleston. I'm going to be going to Chicago and some different places doing television. I'm going back to Canada this summer and doing a media tour up there because I've already been twice and going to be doing television and book signings and all up there. So, things are getting a little crazy.
Thank God you did the podcast early because I think
there's no way we'd get her out.
Yeah, we're booking. I think we're booking up. So.
Well, and then now that I'm filming again, with the show that I'm doing with WALB, which that's been hilarious because I wish you had seen the film crew. I mean, the looks I got. When I say they're looking at me like I had 3 heads, they were used to filming with Savor the Good Life when it was, Southern food, when they were used to that, and some of these same guys on there. Jerry Nolan comes in and he looks at me and says, "So we're going healthy?" And kind of it's like, yeah, we are. And but I made believers out of them. You know, that's like if you can convert your film crew and your photographer and your kids and your friends and people come over to our house. I don't cook differently for them. If they're coming to my house for dinner, they're going to eat that. And I haven't had any complaints so far.
Yeah, funny. Same thing at the office. So all my MAs, everybody knows exactly what we do. I talk about it three times. I talk about it constantly all day long. Gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and so they've all gotten on the bandwagon too. So it's funny. Yeah, everybody around you, they either go along or they go away.
Yeah. It's funny. I had one of the ladies who's a friend of mine who comes to a lot of the cooking classes. She sent me a message on Facebook the other night, and it was a picture of her son just going off through Publix with the buggy. He had just left her, and he said, and she captioned it. She said, "This is when your son tells you you've taken Lara Lyn Carter's gluten-free diet way too far," because her son was just over it. Let's just get done with the groceries and go home, Mom.
That's awesome. Well, the book is Skinny Southern, and we're here.
And everything she brought today was really good.
It was really
and
good.
there's a lot. I've already checked the pages.
Yeah. So everybody, look at. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank y'all for having me. It was fun.